High school teachers, how aware of your students' drama were you? Any good stories? From my fiancée, who's a HS math teacher, some guy starts bitching at a girl that she gave him a STD in front of the class. She goes to the bathroom, comes back, and throws a cup of liquid on him. It was her pee. Well, if she's throwing pee around, no wonder she's spreading STDs. I hear it, and yes, it's also obvious when two kids in my class either start or stop dating. The thing that creeps me out is the teachers who get obsessed with being up on everything. I know one who keeps a notebook and I swear she writes the gossip crap in there constantly. You need to steal that notebook. Teacher here. Yes and no. I had no idea my student was pregnant until she stood up one day in class and was clearly 6 months pregnant. But if you whisper anything in class, I hear you. And I don't forget. But if you whisper anything in class, I hear you. And I don't forget. That is quite possibly the most terrifying thing I've read today. Well, I remember a sophomore discussing with her friend during break how she was going to get a threesome for her boyfriend for his birthday. I thought, my, how times have changed. Threesomes are the new BJ, apparently. If that's the case, I cannot freaking wait for my birthday. I have a couple observation in a 7th grade class while I was in college. 3 girls in the class were thick as thieves at the start of the school year. Halfway through the semester, I come into class one Monday and notice 2 of them sitting as far away from each other as possible, with the third running back and forth in between them. Obviously the messenger negotiator. Out of naive curiosity, which I regret to this day, I ask the messenger, hey, why aren't X and Y talking? I expected the negotiator to give me some juvenile reason as she looks up at me with a smile on her face, and she flippantly replies, oh, X caught Y giving her boyfriend a BJ at a party over the weekend. These are 7th graders, in my mind, way too young to be giving BJs. All of my high school, there's 2 that come to mind immediately. One was more of a game I played to keep myself entertained. The school was on a block schedule, 1 hour 40-minute classes, alternating days, so the kids had a decent amount of free time during off periods. I'd try to guess which ones had been hooking up in the parking lot when they came into class. The red faces, messy hair, rumpled clothes were all good indicators. Plus the kids fricked like rabbits anyways. They were high schoolers. Kinda twisted, but I was bored and needed something to do. 2 involved one of my students who, at first glance at the beginning of the semester, seemed like a high maintenance rodeo diva. Pretty, popular, attitude and the big belt buckle. She actually wound up being a total sweetheart and a very determined student, even though she wasn't the most academically gifted. I overheard her one day mentioning to one of her entourage that her birthday was in a couple weeks. And since I try to pay attention to that sort of stuff with my students, I made a note to myself. The day arrived, and at the end of class, as the students were getting up to leave, I walked up to her and said, hey XXXXX, I heard it was your birthday today. Happy birthday. She looks at me, stock still and stunned, and for a moment I think I fricked up as her eyes tear up. She looks at me and says, Mr. Grey-eyed Jedi, you're the only person today to tell me happy birthday. Not even my parents did. That one hit me in the feels. All those people she had hanging around her, and none of them, not even her parents, had wished her a happy birthday. She asked for a hug. And even though this was in the midst of the majority of the girls in that high school trying to frick me to win a bet and I was paranoid as heck about even being near female students, she got a dang hug. Poor kid. I'm sure I'll think of more later. Those come to mind at the moment. You are a boss person for being a good person for remembering a birthday. The smallest nice action can have a huge impact on someone's life. B. Not freaking high school chicks. Cheers. I volunteered at a boarding school in rural India. We had some pretty strict rules, i.e., absolutely no dating, to be culturally appropriate, and make sure none of our students' parents freaked out that we were indoctrinating them with Western ideals or whatever. Nonetheless, we knew all the couples, who liked who, which students were gay but didn't know it yet. My favorite was this one boy who all the girls had a crush on. He was known for meeting girls behind a particular tree shrubbery bush to hold hands or maybe even sneak a kiss and was there often known as Bush Romeo. That's so cute compared to the other crazy grade 7 freaking stories that the other comments are about. I was a substitute teacher's assistant for a while. One teacher I worked for told me about overhearing a conversation between two 5th graders. One kid was always trying to act tough and say we was in a gang. He was telling another boy about his weekend and how he was smoking and beating people up and being a general bad butt thug. The other boy responded, yeah, but you can't read. Literacy is far more important than gang banging. My mum teaches at a fairly dodgy high school in the town next to ours, and yes, teachers always know about drama. And they talk about it really. She's going out with him? She could do better. My favorite story was when she broke up a fight between two 15-year-old boys and was told that one of the boys had gone to the other's birthday party, got drunk and got with his mum. Not his own mum, the birthday boy's. I came into history class baked a few times. On one occasion, my teacher slowly walks up to my desk, looking at me. He stops, dramatically sniffs the air, looks at me, and smiles. In French, he says, "So, how you feeling today?" Me, "Pretty good, I guess." Him, "Yay, I wish I could feel like that today." Highly aware, at one of the schools I long-term subbed at, 3 months, a bunch of the senior boys and girls went to Florida for spring break. At some point during their partying and hooking up, someone contracted a nasty case of crabs. Since their relationships were weirdly incestual, partner swapping, not sibling business, all 12 of them wound up with the pubic dwellers. The real drama began when they got back to school and tried to deny the rumors, shift blame from one person to the other. Many laughs were had in the teacher's lounge. I intentionally make seating charts that put specific guys and girls next to each other on the off chance that they'll talk and find a common interest. I'm sure this has made a bunch of SAP moments, but a few kids have made new friends or even started dating because of it. You are a good man, woman. My mom is a teacher at a small rural high school. Since it's so tiny, news travels really fast, and since she's one of the cool teachers, students routinely straight up tell her really inappropriate stories. The top story I can think of is that she heard one of her students was working at the local strip club. She came from a very hard home life, so this was actually a really sad and not very funny occurrence. It got weirder, though, when she heard a few weeks later that the girl got fired for being too depressing. One time my teacher gave me detention in class. No reason for it, just explanatomics. You've got detention. As soon as the last bell rings, I want you in this room waiting for me. What the frick? I had done nothing, said nothing. I was a quiet kid when I was in school. I had no clue. Protesting made it worse. I moped through the day, and it seemed like all of my teachers were on edge around me for the rest of the day. Get to their classroom at the last bell. There's a cop there. Turns out the first period teacher had heard some girls talking about how they had brought knives to school. In my town, this did not happen, and they were going to stab me after school. They found knives. I had done nothing to the girls. I was just the loser of all the losers. There was no reason for them to mess with me. I was as low on self-esteem as you could get. They said they were just going to scare me. I did not believe them. 1 day suspension. When they got back, they threw empty glass bottles at me. Cleaned myself up in the showers. Didn't tell anyone. Crap, I had almost completely suppressed that memory. If this was in middle school, you might have an old teacher in this thread. You tetrally mentioned using detention as a saving technique, and the example was about a girl waiting to stab another student. My husband says the awareness of the drama comes and goes. The big stuff definitely he's aware of, but usually he doesn't give a frick about who is dating whom, so he doesn't pay attention. He may say that, but who cares who Billy the star quarterback is asking to prom? He cares. I was a high school substitute at 21 years old. It was the funniest thing ever, coming in and having the full-time teachers fill me in on the latest drama at breakfast. There was this old retired colonel and he was telling me how a girl was upset because she got asked to prom by 2 boys but she really wanted this other boy and she was really upset. I just started laughing and he looked at me like he had been giving some actual lecture. We know everything. First, because you can't whisper for crap. I hear everything you think you are whispering to your neighbor. Second, students like to gossip. and they gossip not just to other students but to teachers as well. It doesn't matter that I don't want to know this. There is still someone there telling me about it the next morning. Third, teachers are bigger gossips. It may be you got into Harvard, you broke up with your boyfriend of 3 years, you were caught smoking on campus or caught cheating. A teacher will probably tell me about it. For God's sake, shut up. I don't want to know anything. First, because you can't whisper for crap. My favorite is when I'm giving directions and a handful of students are clearly chatting and giggling as if I don't notice, then look all surprised when they realize that I'm glaring at them. In high school, most kids will be very secretive and aware of who might be eavesdropping. They'll actually go out of their way to whisper secrets or stuff like that. If they see you're listening, they might even get embarrassed. In middle school, their voices will not be discreet at all. It's all blah 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 fricking and drugs and Pokemon without much concern for who is listening. Not many kids feel shame, and if they do, they simply laugh it off because they don't give a crap. In elementary school, the kids will come up to you and tell you what someone else said. I had a little girl kindergartner come up to me a few weeks ago and say, "Mr. Painty Films, Lana said she was going to go over to Zach's house and frick him. Thanks for telling on her. Adorable little girl. I really needed to hear that." Here's a nifty story that happened this past week. I taught an elementary school 4th grade class and there was this kid who was having trouble with math. Turns out he really liked Pokemon too. Like had Pokemon cards in his desk, made up his own Pokemon and drawings. Both things that I used to do. He was supposed to be making equivalent fractions, but was having trouble understanding how to get them. We were trying to convert 1/3 into other things, 2/6, 3/9, but he wasn't even getting it. So he actually made a comment to me. I wish math was more like Pokemon, which was great to hear as a teacher who understands Pokemon. I started riffing on ways to incorporate Pokemon into the fractions. I think I started with, okay, so we have 3 male Pikachu, 1 is shiny, and 2 aren't. That's like 1/3 of the male Pikachu are shiny, right? But let's pretend that each Pikachu now gets a mate that matches its color. So we have 2 regular male Pikachu that get 2 regular females, and 1 shiny male that gets 1 shiny female. How many Pikachu total? 6, right? Now remember 1/3 were shiny. How many Pikachu out of the 6 are shiny now? 2, yep. So instead of 1/3 of the Pikachu being shiny, we have 2 out of 6, yes. It wasn't perfect, but I got him to the end point a lot easier than what he was trying to do. Eventually I had to relate it more to percentages so he could understand the concept, but the important thing was that I got him more interested in math than he was. Fricking and drugs and Pokemon. Thug life. I'm a guy. I worked with hearing impaired students specifically, and often one-on-one. Somehow this resulted in me becoming the older male confidant of many a teenage high school girl. My god, the drama. Every single day. He said, she said blah, blah, blah. Oh, my god. Sheila tried to friend me on Facebook. Can you believe it? Now, don't get me wrong. I never thought any of my students were retards or stupid, or anything like that. Just teens being teens. And I'm happy they get to grow up relatively sheltered because it's a big, dark world out there. Still, I don't know how I ever found high school girls appealing when I was a student. 5 minutes of chatting with them now makes me want to bash my head into a brick wall. My mom is a high school teacher. I'm a college student now. I had lunch with my mom and some other teachers in the teachers lounge one day. They talk about everything, and they know everything you've done. Everything. On one hand, I definitely know things they don't know that I know. Friends reference. I'll overhear conversations about having a stupid fight with their boyfriend, that they skipped their morning classes, etc. I'm aware which seniors party on the weekends and which ones don't. However, it always amazes me when I find out student experiences that I was completely in the blue about, when a great girl who did well in school told me her mother tried to commit suicide a year ago and she's been keeping her from doing it since. Finding out a flaky student of mine is the father of 2, when parents are the ones who won't wake up in time to take their kids to school, and that's why they're frequently late, so it just depends. I'd say I'm pretty highly aware. Students, especially middle schoolers, are incredibly indiscreet when talking to peers. I think my favorite stories have to be from a girl who I had in class last year who's a compulsive liar. Among the many lies she told, some of the more memorable ones were as follows. She's pregnant. She wasn't. And she was confused later in the year as to why everyone was calling her a S. She broke up with Deonte because she has an identical twin sister who she sometimes switches places with, and he cheated on her with her twin. I later asked her if the reason she never has her homework is because her twin was the one in class when it was assigned. Over the weekend, her dad was shot in the street, and she ran 10 miles so she could be with him while he died in her arms. Called mom. Wasn't true. She was grounded that weekend and in her room watching TV the entire time. Also, dad's alive and well, living 3 hours away. At least I can't say that my job isn't interesting. Till getting pregnant is a requisite for being a S. Not actually freaking. Condoms, people. Pretty aware. My first year teaching, another teacher intercepted a note and told me I needed to read it. It was between two students, a boy and a girl. Both were dating other kids, and in the note they were talking about losing their virginity and what they had done in their private life. The boy described everything in detail. At the local mall's shipping area, truck stop, BJS at the movies, etc. The girl's response was the thing that appalled me, and I still remember exactly what she wrote to this day. We have done everything possible except crap on each other's chests. Oh, did I mention that they were 8th graders? SMH. My math teacher always threatened to intercept our notes and read them out to the class. When he finally did, he intercepted a note I wrote that just said, "Hey Brittany, I'm sure Mr. Taylor is going to read this note aloud. I just wish he'd do it in a British accent." He did. My best friend's dad is a chemistry teacher, and she told me that all of the science teachers refer to one student as Butthole, because he is in Butthole. I just love the hilarious idea of my role model science teacher nicknaming students with profanities in the teacher's lounge. My mom is a kindergarten teacher. Yesterday Chase stole Audrey's crayons and Audrey called him a sucker. A kindergartner. Sounds like Chase is a sucker. My dad's a teacher. Kids, your teachers always know what you talk about in class. Always. And they think you are complete retards. Thinking back to all the dumb crap I said in class makes me wonder if I was actually retarded. Pre-K drama is wonderful, too. From last week, Crystal, Samantha, and Bianca enter stage left. Crystal, teacher, Monique says she's going to tell on us. Lastras, what happened? Crystal, she's gonna tell because we don't like purple. Monique, looks over, deer in the headlights, unaware of the grievous accusations being levied against her. Needless to say, I mediated a Jerry Springer-style catfight within 2 minutes of the above. TL. DR. Precray. My GF works at a daycare. She says all the little kids talk about everything their parents do. Everything. Those little eyes are watching you, and that little mouth is telling the daycare teacher every weird little thing you do. I'm not a teacher, but I had a teacher in my final year who rented a house to 3 of his students. Said teacher was called during the housewarming party because someone burst the radiator. He then came by to help clean it up, still wearing a suit because he was in a meeting, as all of his students scrambled to hide their alcohol. I heard that you had an abortion. I try to show you support without letting you know I know. I heard that your dad hit you. We talked about it. You turned down the offer to stay with me, stuck it out for your sisters, gave up and moved in with mom. I heard that you have a baby at home. I understand when you don't make it to school and try to be flexible so you can get your work done. I heard your parents are getting divorced and you are moving. Gave you my contact info so you can let me know if you need me. I heard your mom/dad died of cancer. So much loss and pain. I lost my mom to cancer too. I heard you were out partying. Remind you to use a designated driver. Thanks for the gold. I didn't even understand what it was at first. Kind of new to Reddit. I appreciate it. Don't worry students. Wherever you may be, Jean Jane is watching over you. Did anyone just have a normal school life? You know, keep your head down. Pull A's and B's on most tests. Have a few close friends. Watch TV. Play in a band or two. I can't believe I missed out on some of this crap. I must have been really unobservant. We, my group of friends, pretty much just tell our favorite teacher most of the dumb stuff we do. She either doesn't believe us, think we're retarded or that we're just trying to be funny. Then she makes good-natured jokes at our expenses. She's great. Every school has a teacher or two like that, who everyone shares gossip with. I teach at an alternative high school, and my class is known for being one of the few places where everything is fair game. Everything. I've talked about everything from drug use, both soft and hard, family problems, relationship problems, private problems, and everything in between. I've debated, counseled, and discussed, but more than anything I've listened. What teenagers want, more than anything, is to be listened to. They are developing the part of their brain that processes decisions, and they want to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. I think that is one thing most parents don't understand. Teenagers don't want to be told what to do because they want to figure that out. I could tell a few stories, but to be honest, I expect my comment will be buried, but if I get enough interest, I'll write one down. I'll stay away from the deeply personal stories. I'll just write down the stupid high school stuff, and there is lots of it. I used to teach at a mid-sized suburban high school out in California. To be honest, I never paid much attention to what was going on with the kids since they seemed so transient. There were always a couple of them disappearing without any notice, but no one ever really cared, and there were always new students taking their place. The only thing I ever really saw that stood out was what seems like an unusually close relationship between a transfer student and a member of the faculty. I couldn't say for sure that it was inappropriate, but she sure did spend a lot of time in his office, even after school hours. All in all, it was actually a pretty good job, right up until the mayor turned into a giant snake and ate Principal Snitter. Yeah, I know. I didn't think they were important either until they ate Principal Flutie. Kids these days. I hear you, students, swearing. I hear about your parties. I know you got drunk this weekend. I've heard who you last slept with. I've heard how you moved to a different town and should be going to that school but are still here. I've heard how your parents are abusing you and I've reported it. I heard how you want to be up so and so because they have no swag and stole your girlfriend. I also hear it from the other teachers and students. Word to the wise. Stop talking about it in school. I helped out with a high school marching band this last fall. I just graduated high school last year, but I got hired to help out with another school. Only 2 kids really knew how old I was because I knew them before, but the others figured out I had to be around 20-ish. Since they knew I was young, apparently they felt okay telling me all their little high school stories after rehearsals. I knew who was hooking up with who did drugs, who would probably frick me, and even knew which girls were saying I was cute. The kids would call me over when I was roaming the field giving comments, and just be like, "Hey Groover Skirrel, so and so is hooking up with that kid," and I'd just walk away. The drumline even made me a CD entitled "A Tribute to Your Night" with Scott's mom. Scott was another instructor. The CD was full of songs having to do with fricking and drugs and whatever. From Show Me Your Genitals to Tippin' on My Dong and even Vaginal Secretions by Necro. It was wild. Why on earth would you ever tell your teacher things like that? The kids are lucky that I was a cool instructor, or I could have got them in some serious trouble. But I still listen to that CD. When I was 17, I was in law class, drawing on my crush's back with my fingertips. My most awesome teacher yelled, "Designate, fondle him after class." I was mortified, and I kinda want to go back to high school to tell that teacher that 13 years later, I'm happily married to that crush, and I fondle him whenever I want. Congrats on the fondling. Not a high school teacher, but this happened in one of my classes in high school. Our religion teacher was a pretty cool guy, didn't really do crap all in his classes, so people often talked. Now the more popular people had a tendency to talk in a voice such that the entire class could hear. I was in the unfortunate situation where I sat in front of them. One class, one of the girls, let's say Jamie, was talking to her friends about how she lost her virginity. Jamie was saying that she didn't regret it, and that she was in love with her boyfriend. The conversation continued to them talking about whether it was good or not. Jamie said that the first couple of times aren't really good for anyone. It is at this point that they realize they are speaking loud enough for the teacher to hear. So one of Jamie's friends, Yamala, said to the teacher, "We are talking about doing laundry." It was at this point that our awesome teacher replied, "Maybe you need a new washing machine." TL. Dr. My religion teacher found out one of the students was freaking crappy and told her she needed a better dude. Bet that girl felt really embarrassed, to say the least. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.